But what will be happening now is we'll have a guest panel, and then we'll have a slight 10-minute break, and then we'll be getting straight on with the auction. So, without further ado, may I please have the curtains open for our first guests, Liz Sladen and Sarah Sutton. Nice trip up here?
Yes, very uneventful. Yes, just a few skips broken in the car and a few chocolate biscuits on the floor.
So have you two obviously met before at conventions, but have you ever done a panel before?
I think we've done a large panel. We've done a large panel together, but I don't think we've done one just the two of us.
No.
So
Because we were at Longleat together, weren't we?
Oh God, yeah.
that was a murderous event, wasn't it?
That was the first real convention I think I ever went to.
It was quite different, actually.
Yeah, yes.
Can you all hear? No.
No, I can't hear.
I can't hear each other.
Let's bring that closer.
I mean, it's right against the mouth, isn't it? Then what are you going to do?
I will project my voice.
Oh,
Just a technical
jolly
glitch.
good.
We're used to these, aren't we, Doctor? You all right then?
I'm
That's much
absolutely
better.
fine. Can you all hear me at the back?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, thank you.
Hold it for you.
That's very nice.
Well, if we sat close, we'll get it right in a minute.
There we go. Look at
We'll
this.
sit together.
We'll
that's
manage,
better,
won't we?
isn't
Because it's stupid. We might say wonderful things and you'll never hear them.
You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
May, yes.
Now, you worked with Tom Baker along with Liz, and Liz worked with John Pertwee. How do you feel about working with those people? Was that a highlight of your career as such?
No, not really.
That question's never been asked before, has it?
I suppose when you first go into Doctor Who, speaking for myself, you're far more nervous, and John had a great history that he brings on behind him, and it was lovely to work with him, but then the image you have of someone before you work with them is obviously very, very different, as I suppose you all find out after you've worked with someone. You have preconceived ideas, and they're nothing like what you think.
When they meet us.
As far as Tom was concerned, I didn't know who was going to be the new Doctor. There were various names bandied about, really very well-known names. And then Barry Letts says, "We found our Doctor." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Tom Baker." I said, "Who?" I mean, no disrespect to Tom. I mean, it was wonderful working with him. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. We were just very fortunate that it did actually work. It did gel. I think you have a special relationship with your doctors, don't you?
Yes, I found my last, the first two stories I did, i.e. the last ones that Tom did, quite stressful actually. Tom was coming to the end of his reign, and I think he was finding it quite traumatic, and it filtered through the whole cast really, and I found it a bit stressful. Likewise, I didn't know who the new Doctor was going to be, and Peter and I got on very well, and he's very easy to work with. And I enjoyed working with him very much. But I did find the last, because it was also new for me as well, and I was quite nervous, and I'd only just been told that I was going to carry on as an assistant, I did find it a little bit stressful, the first two stories that I did.
So when you auditioned for the part then, thank you. When you auditioned for the part, were there a lot of other actresses there?
I have no idea. I read in the papers there was 90 or something up for the part of Nissa, but I wouldn't believe that. That's all I read in the papers, but no idea.
Excuse me, I can't stand this thing. Can I move it out of the way? I can't see anyone. Can I share this with the three? And then we can just pass it around. It's much more intimate, isn't it? I hate these things. No, when I went up for the part of Sarah Jane, I didn't know I was up for the part of Sarah Jane because they don't advertise that they need a new assistant. I was working late on another project. I got back home and there was a message under the telephone waiting for me to say, would I go see Barry Letts at Threshold House the next morning for an episode or a part in Doctor Who? And I thought it was just a one story. So I went along thinking that. I read a scene with Barry. I recognised Barry because I'm sure some of you know he used to be an actor, a very good actor. He was one of the Rank Charm School. He was with the Rank Company for a long time. And then he became director and then producer of Doctor Who. And after we'd had the read-through, he said, well, would you like to come and meet John Pertwee at North Acton? Those are the rehearsal rooms. So I thought, well, they're being a bit thorough, aren't they? I said, yes, fine. And he said, we'll get another actor to read the part in with you that you have already read with me. So we went along in his car, and I was waiting in the rehearsal room. I did the scene with another actor, and Barry seemed to get very excited. And he said, well, I'll just call John down. He's working upstairs. And my first image of Pertwee was this enormous white-haired guy with lots of curly white hair, lots of badges all over his suit came down. Very polite to me, shook hands. They tell this story, Barry and John, I don't know how true it is, that John was talking in front of me, talking to me, while Barry walked behind and went, sort of, what do you think? And then Barry came in front. This was just on the look of me. Obviously, if Barry had done that, John would know that the audition had gone all right. So it was really, what do you feel about, what is the look of this person to you? Do you think you can get on? Because John's kind of doctor, I think he has to have quite a small girl to put a he's very much the gent doctor. He puts a protective arm around her, the mother hen to the chick. And there is a rumour going around, and I think it's true, that they did cast someone else before me, but she was rather larger, and it just didn't suit. Anyway, then evidently John went behind me, and Barry came in front, and John went, fine, okay. So I was offered the job there and then. I accepted. I went home and told my agent. He said, you didn't say yes, I haven't talked money. So that's how I got the job in Doctor Who.
So what made you want to become an actress in the first place then?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really set out. I went to ballet school when I was 7, and the school I went to had an agent, and she used to come along and see all the end-of-term productions. And when I was 9, they happened to be auditioning for the part of Baby Roo in Winnie the Pooh, which was on at the Phoenix Theatre in Tottenham Court Road, or was to be on. Julian Sladen wrote the music. It was a super musical, and she said, I think you ought to go up for the interview. And I'd never been on a London stage before. I was only 9, and I'd got this little song I had to sing, which I can't remember now, something about a beetle, but I can't remember the rest of it. And I walked onto this stage and just burst into tears and walked off again. And they were very kind. They said, oh, perhaps you'd like to come back in a few minutes when the other children have been on. And there were 99 boys and me auditioning. And I came back later on, and I didn't cry, and I did my song, and they offered me the part, and I did that for 3 Christmas seasons. They kept asking me back until I grew out of the costume. And then they had to get somebody else. That's how I started, and from then on I did mostly television after that. But my parents were amazed, because neither of my parents are in the acting profession, and it was quite an eye-opener for them. I spent all my Christmas holidays for 3 years going up to London on the train and having a wonderful time, being in the theatre on Boxing Day and doing 2 shows, and I thought it was wonderful. So that's how I started.
I never wanted to do anything else. I really believed there were fairies at the bottom of the garden, and I used to go down and play with them and pretend, and it was all make-believe. And my parents were quite disconcerted, really. I stayed on at school till the 6th form, and my father said, well, if you really do want to act, you can leave then and audition. If you do that, you can then audition for drama school, which I did. And so I didn't have my first professional job until I went into rep at Liverpool Playhouse as an ASM, which means that you do small parts, but you do everything else. I mean, you literally wash the stage, you make the tea, you do the sound, you do the book, you do everything. Not all at the same time. Even I'm not that clever. But you do it in turn with other ASMs. So I was 18 before I actually stepped professionally on the stage. And I stayed in the provinces working in theatre for quite a while before I eventually moved to London. I didn't have an agent. And it was sort of unheard of not to have an agent, but I'd never been out of work, so I didn't bother with one. And it wasn't until I started to do television in Manchester, when I was also working at the Library Theatre there, that an agent said he was interested in me, and if I ever came up to London, would I contact him, which I did. And then I think about after 18 months in London, I was in a play in the West End for 6 months with George Cole. And then I did some work at the Royal Court Theatre in London. And then I did some telly. And then I got Doctor Who. And I still don't really want to do anything else. I wish sometimes, now my little girl's going to be 9 on Friday. And I mean, Sarah knows your career. It's up to you what you do with it, but it does go on hold, or it just doesn't do anything. You just try and fit things in around a family. And I often wish that there's something else that would fit round a family better, that I would get great satisfaction out of doing, but there isn't. I mean, I either want to stay at home with my family and be there. I want my cake and eat it, I suppose, really.
I mean, acting's wonderful when you're doing it, but when you're not doing it, it seems like you're just wasting time, and I wish that I could find something else. I'm very interested in calligraphy, and I would quite like to pursue that a bit, but then I think, well, if I really launch into that, I'm not going to concentrate on getting work and end up not doing anything at all.
Well, on my list of notes here, I've got Alice Through the Looking Glass, and I actually saw that a week ago, and I thought that was absolutely stunning.
A week ago?
On video, a copy of it, and there's some Geoffrey Bayldon's in that, and he's brilliant as the White Knight. Any memories of that?
Yes, I have a lot of memories of Alice. I was 12 at the time, and it was the first full production the BBC had done, the colour separation overlay, which was a relatively new technique then in the 70s, and certainly the first time it had been used so much throughout one programme. James McTaggart directed it, who had written the very first television I ever did, Boys and Girls Come Out to Play, when I was 11. And he was a wonderful man. He had no children of his own, and I kind of think he looked on me as a daughter. He was a sweet man. Unfortunately, he died a few years later, massive heart attack, and I missed him dreadfully when he first died. He was a lovely man, and the cast was superb. We had Judy Parfitt playing the Red Queen, and Brenda Bruce playing the White Queen, Geoffrey Baildon, the White Knight, and the actor playing Humpty Dumpty, I've completely forgotten. You're going to be able to tell me. Oh God, he's someone really famous, and I can see his face. I can't think of it is. It'll come to me in a minute. No, it was wonderful, and I was thoroughly spoiled. I have very, very fond memories of that time. We had to finish off some of it after I'd been on holiday, and I've got very freckly skin, and I remember being on holiday in Cyprus with my parents, and I was having to put all this sunblock on. All my freckles were going to come out, and it wouldn't match up. Everyone was very disconcerted in the makeup department when I came back with all these freckles. Oh my God, all these freckles up. But yeah, very good memories of that.
Of course, being very visual effects based, that one, I mean, you both being involved in Doctor Who, visual effects is really what the programme has hinged on, occasionally to the detriment of it. Has there ever been any visual effects that have really interfered with your performances, and, you know, you've been, ooh, that's tough?
Yes, I found K9 very difficult to work with because he'd never talked to me, he just left a gap. I found that incredibly difficult. I think it was in Pyramid of Mars. Is this something, you'll have to help me. Is there a bell jar that comes down and encompasses Sarah? Yes, it was impressed on me by Paddy Russell. I've never met a director who made you rehearse more. Lovely Jeffrey Arch used to say, oh my God, he said, are we being kept in after school again? She used to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. And sometimes Doctor Who won't take that. You know, you start to question Doctor Who, and it opens up all cans of beans. You know, you start to get in areas that really are not relevant. Anyway, she impressed upon me that you must not move, quite rightly so. She said, if you can stay absolutely still, it is going to take a long time for this special effect to freeze. I mean, I don't know how many minutes, but it was a long time. And she said, if you can stay absolutely still, not move, she said, it will look absolutely as though it really has happened. It comes down. I don't quite know what the special effect was. It goes off and you disappear or you're not there, whatever. And the floor manager, they have headphones on the floor. Sometimes you can hear a little bit through them, you know, when they're saying to you, will you tell her to move to the... They say, could you... They're so, you know, would you mind just a little to the... You know, you don't hear what actually comes through. And when the special effect was over on this one, I heard this wonderful yeah through the cans, so I knew that I hadn't moved, you know, because sometimes special effects are incredibly difficult, and sometimes time is running out and time is money, and you know at 10 o'clock you have no more time. What you've got is what you're going to see on the box, you know, the next week. And it is so difficult sometimes for a special effect to work, and they sometimes can't tell you exactly the way you've rehearsed it in the rehearsal room. They have to take shortcuts, and you just have to move so quickly, and you have to trust people. And if someone says, do it, you can't say, oh, excuse me, we didn't do that in rehearsal. You just have to go. You just have to do it, and really watch out for yourself, because, you know, on that studio floor, it's not like rehearsal. If the special effects don't work, there's no programme. They are going to put on the box the scene where the special effect was best, not where you were best. So all the time, you have to absolutely really stay on top. It is incredibly tiring, but it's very good when you get to 10 o'clock, isn't it?
Yes, time to go home. It's frustrating because often I didn't understand really what they were doing half of the time. And you think, well, why is it taking so long? It can't possibly take this long. And they have their reasons, obviously. But the only endless special effects, you know, there's always something being a pain. But I can remember in my last story with Lisa Goddard and Dominic Gard, they had those wonderful big like goldfish bowls on their heads, and I felt so sorry for them because I had this scene where they had all this smoke around the studio, and they'd say cut, and all the smoke would clear, but in these glass bowls it was just smoke and you couldn't see their faces, and no one had thought that the smoke would get inside these things and these poor actors would be gasping their last. I felt so sorry for them.
Of course, the monsters.
Well, they got a rough deal, didn't they?
Yes.
I mean, some of those guys must have been sweating to death inside those costumes.
The pterodactyls had a bad deal. Oh, right.
Yeah, I remember one particular very wonderfully kind ice warrior, very, very big black gentleman, and he couldn't breathe properly. We were running down this corridor, and I stopped. I shouldn't have done, but he couldn't breathe. No, go to go. And I pretended I'd slipped or something, and he just slid down the wall behind me. They had just not allowed for enough air vent in his costume, and the designers came and they ripped it off. You know, you have to be a bit careful.
And what about costumes then? Because Liz obviously got the lion's share of the costumes, whereas you only got a couple, as I remember.
The budget was shrinking. Blame it on you. No, it was a great bone of contention. Janet and I are always moaning. That's why I love Black Orchid so much, because I actually got to change my clothes. But you always start off with something quite glamorous and adventurous, and you realise pretty early on that it's not very practical, and running around streets and climbing up hedges and through things, it's not very practical having skirts and trousers. I felt so sorry for Janet. In the story that I hate the most about the Concorde, thank you, the roof of Terminal 3 car park at Heathrow in January, about 3 foot of snow, we were frozen. At least I had trousers on, but I've never seen Janet look so cold, poor thing. She was absolutely frozen. And everyone else and the doctor's got these coats and scarves and everything else, and a complete idiot standing there in a miniskirt in that wind chill factor of -12. Not very sensible.
No, they never did any of my Doctor Who's in the summer, and I don't know about your locations. Mine were always a rubbish dump, a peat bog, or oh yes, those portable loos. Oh, and by the time you got your long johns on, I mean the costume just wouldn't go any further with me. I was so tight. I mean, it was incredible, very, very cold. I wouldn't like to go through that again. No, I think I'm too old to go through that again. I don't think I could do that now. Yeah, and the doctors, you see, they're so warm. They've got either the scarves and the jackets. Did you have trouble with the heels on shoes or anything?
No, I had quite sensible.
Oh, did you? Well, both my doctors were really quite tall, and it was very difficult on filming where you had a running shot, distance come to foreground, and you had to stand still. I really wanted to be in shot. You know, if it's a two-shot, it's no good the top of my head and his head. I wanted to be there. And so I would have to wear quite high-heeled boots. And it was terribly difficult running on rubbly ground, so I had weak ankles. They were even worse by the time I finished. But the stuntmen were always terribly good to me, Terry Walsh in particular. If you couldn't see my feet running along the ground, or if it was a really bad stony area, I used to put plimsolls, some form of soft shoe, no heel on. And he'd say to the director, well, can you just kind of block this, because you're going to lose her, she's going to break her ankle there, she really has got weak ankles. And so I'd run along there, and then quickly before, if they cut away, I'd then put my boots on, and then stand up to be seen in shot. Well, it's the one people seem to remember mostly. You see, you and Janet had to have the budget split between you. I was the only girl on it, so they used to like to change my clothes quite a bit, I think. I was very lucky. I had lovely costume designers who let me have a fair say. I mean, not my first one. Oh, no, that's not true. James Atchison, who's since gone on to win, is it 2 Oscars or 3? Wonderful. They had a very definite idea for Sarah, what they wanted. But they would always let you say if you were comfortable in something. Did you have that as well?
Yeah.
Yes, I was never pushed into something I really didn't like. And as the show went on, I had it in my mind. I mean, some of the fans may not like it, but I reckon that Sarah, when she was with Tom, was not so earthbound. Now, if you are taken up around the galaxy, you do not come out of the TARDIS dressed in something from Marks and Spencer's that anyone can buy. I wanted to show a facet of it. I could have got Queen Victoria's jewels out of there. I could have got the crown, I could have got the robes, I could have worn anything you like. I wanted to show something that she was moving away from Earth, that she was in her own time with him. So that's maybe why the clothes took on this kind of tiny surrealistic thing. And the designers seemed to enjoy that as much as I did.
My favourite costume, I think, was the first one I had. Was beautifully made, and then I went into trousers because it was more practical. And John Nathan Turner says he had lots of letters saying, "Where have Nissa's legs gone?" Wrapped up in trousers. The one that, the stripy one, that a lot of people don't like very much. Peter Davison didn't like that one either. He said I looked like a waitress from McDonald's. And the first morning of in the studio, he came up to me and said, "I'll have 2 Big Macs and a milkshake, please." So that didn't go down a lot. No. Well, I had yes, I have velvet trousers. They looked like knickerbockers. I had little boots. Yes, that was my favourite. Yes, it was lovely. It was a beautiful colour. But my last costume, I quite like the grey suede one. Don't ask me why I took my skirt off. Everyone always asks. I thought you might be going to ask why I took my skirt off. I had a tummy ache, and I don't know about you, but I always take my skirt off when I have a tummy ache.
No comment. Thank you. Right, that's completely thrown me now. Right, let me get back to the subject. Right, when you first went into the programme, did you ever think that it was going to have the kind of following? Did you know anything about fandom as such?
Did you? No, I didn't. I had no idea that how many years later I'd be sitting here today talking about Doctor Who. And it's quite strange, really. I'm more involved with Doctor Who now than I was 8 years ago, because we've done the radio Doctor Who, which is being repeated. I think it's going out in April on Radio 2. Evidently, that's a very good sign, Radio 2. Evidently, that's the one to get your repeats on. So I hope we'll do more. It doesn't say it will be me. I would love it if it was. But that's why I've come back into Doctor Who. Also, my daughter's become... I can't say she's an overt fan, but she's very interested. All of a sudden she realises Doctor Who exists. Not through me, actually, through friends in the playground. The boys, they've been playing Exterminate in the playground. I go there one day a week to help as teacher's helper, and I couldn't believe it when I heard Exterminate outside in the playground. It was quite strange, and one of the little boys, Michael, is a very big fan of Doctor Who. And he's going, "Mrs. Miller, were you really in Doctor Who?" I said, "Yes." So we had a little chat on it in the schoolroom. And it's amazing how it comes full circle. And people I met in Chicago in November are people that gave me toys for my child before she was born. I mean, it has this amazing family feeling, Doctor Who. Great loyalty, and it's given me so much pleasure. And, you know, being asked to come here today and seeing you all out there, obviously you enjoy Doctor Who, no matter who are your favourites or what. I mean, it's a very, very warm feeling, and I think there still is a place for Doctor Who. I hope in some way the BBC find a way to accommodate this loyalty.
Yes, I had no idea when I started Doctor Who what it really entailed. I think Longleat was the first really big convention I went to, although I did one quite early on in Chicago with John Nathan Turner and Anthony Ainley, and that was right at the beginning when they very first started to take off convention-wise in the States, and I was completely gobsmacked. I couldn't believe it at all. It's a great surprise.
So how, the companions you both worked with, male companions, Ian Marter obviously, and Adric Matthew Waterhouse, what are they really like behind the scenes, and what was Ian Marter like behind the scenes?
Ian was wonderful. It was very, very touching in America how everyone remembered him on the 30th anniversary and would mention him to me. Ian was far too clever to be an actor. I just met him through Doctor Who. He happened to live near me. I didn't know. We became We became close friends. We didn't see each other all the time, but he was a great support. It was very nice to have someone as another assistant on Doctor Who, so sometimes he was made to look stupid instead of Sarah. We used to talk about that quite a lot. I once saw Ian one day. He was walking around the rehearsal room, putting one foot in front of the other. I watched him for a while, and we hadn't got very much to do that day. I said, "What are you doing, Ian?" And he said, "Well, do you know," he said, "if I was walking to Japan doing this, it would take me," and he told me in hours how long it would take him and how many steps. Now, I don't know if it was actually true, but he was actually working it out. He was very, very bright, Ian. And I think he found a great second outlet in Doctor Who when he was writing the stories. He used to phone me up and he'd say, "Oh, Liz," he said, "Sarah's a bit naff in this story. Do you mind if I alter it a bit and write you up?" I don't know, I don't mind, that's lovely. And we used to say, if we were in a scene together, quite often they used to think that, "Oh, well, we must keep Liz in the background because she's Sarah. She doesn't have much to do in this scene, but we just sort of keep her around." And Ian and I say, "Look, please, do we have to be in the scene? Because we think we'd be much stronger if we were just out of this scene. We could be somewhere else. You concentrate on that." And that would make the director's life much easier because he wouldn't have to keep doing, camera shots to us. When we wanted to be there, we wanted it to be for a purpose for the story, not just because you had to be there, because you're with the Doctor. And as Tom quite rightly and wonderfully said, he said, "Don't make Liz look a fool because you make the Doctor look a fool. If Sarah is an idiot, the Doctor would not take her round in space." It's wonderful. It was great support from both Tom and Ian in that, and I miss Ian very, very much. His eldest son has just become a daddy, just before Christmas. So, life goes on, but he's very missed.
Yes, I wish we'd had someone like that in the TARDIS, rooting for us. We had a very busy time in our TARDIS, but no one, the people coming and going all the time, but we didn't have anyone stand up for us like that. And Matthew had a couple of nicknames. Come Earthshock, he was called Matt Finish, Matt Black, because he used to wear black a lot. Mark I got on very well with. I've seen Mark in Australia. He's living out there. Well, I think he might be coming back to England. I'm not too sure, but he's been living in the outback, sort of. Well, seems like the outback to me, but not by Australian standards. But he's great, Mark. I hope he comes back over here and we see more of him.
So let's get down to that old chestnuts. What is your favourite story? Because I don't actually know, actually.
Oh, you want me to think about it?
Black Orchid, probably my favourite. Earthshock, not because Adric got blown to a million pieces, but because, well, you may think it was, but because I think it was a good, strong story, and I like the Cybermen, if you could sort of like a Cyberman in that sort of way. Right. She's got problems, hasn't she? And I suppose I have fond memories of my last story, I suppose, but I like Black Orchid because it was un-science fiction-y, and Peter was happy, he got to play cricket, and we got to change our clothes, Janet and I, so everyone was happy all round, really.
There's some I remember, rightly or wrongly, more than others. I did like Planet of Evil, not because it's just come out on video, that is quite the wrong reason. It was just that for once in the story, we landed on a planet that could be evil but look beautiful. It was not the normal landing. We didn't land on barren landscape. We didn't land in a quarry. We landed on this amazing planet. I mean, it is a pinch from Forbidden Planet, if any of you know that. I mean, all the good stories are a rewrite of something else, really. But it was still different, I thought, for Doctor Who. Plus the fact I didn't have to film outdoors. We filmed it at Ealing Studios, and I love Ealing Studios, just for their history, and I just love being part of that. Plus, I liked the costume, and I got to a stage in Sarah then when I was very comfortable with her. I think it was probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was right in the middle of Tom's era and mine, I think so. And we become very confident and affectionate with each other on screen in the right way that it would work. And I just felt very good about that period.
So So, in your character, was there anything that you were ever told to do which you put your foot down and said, "No, I'm not doing that. That's not within my character"?
I can't remember. Honestly, can't remember. No, draw the blank.
Yeah, there were a number of things. I mean, oh dear, it's all so easy when the doctor puts his foot down. And then, oh, isn't he got integrity? When the girl puts her foot down, oh, well, you know. You have to be very careful. It really has not changed very much, I don't think, between actors. I still feel are listened to more than actresses, except if you're of a certain standing. I used to feel, I never really put my foot down, but I would question things, and, you know, I didn't have a great battle with the directors. Because sometimes, you know, a director comes in, you've been with that character for a long time, you know it so well that you can feel more confident to suggest things. I did used to say, did I have to scream so much sometimes? It did seem an awful lot, but when I look back, I don't think it was. And you've got to have a cliffhanger. And sometimes if you're falling down whatever it was meant to be, say 200 feet, you know, you would scream, wouldn't you? Back me up on that. I think that there's an element of screaming there. No, there were various things that I didn't particularly like doing. I think there was something in Brain of Morbius. I used to have one scene in that, I think if I remember correctly, lovely Chris Barry's here today who directed it, but there was no way out. It was a small room and it would have been so easy for me to escape. And I couldn't escape because it wasn't in the story. So I think I didn't like that very much.
Well, Nicholas Courtney, who you both worked with, he obviously couldn't be here today because he's in a play, unfortunately, but what do you think of him? We all think he's great anyway, don't we?
Yeah. Nick Courtney, yes, he's lovely. In rehearsal, always make me laugh. We go up to the top floor at the Acton Hilton, as we call it, in the rehearsal rooms where they've got a canteen, and the food's always been quite good up there. And Nicholas would have the starters and the main course, the puddings, the coffee, chocolate afters, white wine to start with, and then red wine, and then he'd sleep all the afternoon rehearsals. Wonderful, he'd just nod off on his chair. Nicholas, your turn. He's nodding off. Bless him, he's lovely. He's a sweetie. Love him.
That's when we used to catch Nick out. We used to wait till the afternoon, and then we'd all turn around and say, "What do you think, Nick? Tell you tomorrow. Tell you tomorrow." Nick, always tell you tomorrow. We never got another answer to that. We used to wait till the afternoon. It was very mean.
Of course, you did Paradise of Death with him recently, and also, unfortunately, one of the actors was it Harold Innocent, who's died recently, I believe.
The next to last thing he did. He knew he was ill then, but I mean, no one knew how ill he was. It was lovely to be resurrected again for the radio. And also Peter Miles was on the radio, who had been in an episode of Doctor Who that I did. And what did he play? I did... Neither this or neither that, he used to say, yes. Oh yes, it was lovely. There was an initial kind of how are we going to get on again, because there was Barry, there was John, there was Nick, myself, and Peter, who hadn't been such an integral part of it. But it was quite amazing how it, it just slotted back in, and away we went as though there'd been no time lapse in between.
No mentions of time. The last thing you did.
I didn't see you.
No, I think I saw you in passing. Very. Oh, were you? You're probably keeping a low profile.
No. I didn't see you. I wish you.
Yes, well, it was a very busy day. It was people coming and going all the time, and people coming in and zooming off and running around Albert Square 3 times and then disappearing off again. It was frantic, but it was good fun. I was glad I did it.
We should be remembered for running.
Running. I was useless at running. My husband will vouch for me. I cannot run. I just cannot run. And the story we did in Amsterdam, you notice I'm always last. And my legs going 3 times as fast as everybody else's and still not catching up. Because Peter's got these huge long legs and he's galumphing away, and I'm just like 50 steps to his one running behind. And all those dreadful cobbles. It's all cobbled streets in Amsterdam. And like you, I got weak ankles. And my legs ached like anything after that week's filming. I was always last.
What about you?
No, I don't want to be remembered in that I would rather not have come back to be depicted as Sarah Jane again. That has gone. Sarah Jane is in a time warp. She's not me as I am now. And I shouldn't really play her except on the radio. So I wouldn't, but it was for children in need. You can't really say no, can you? And I'd been to a screening the night before. My daughter had done a film for the BBC, and I was very excited for her, and the screening went wrong, and we were there very late, and I don't know, we were given all this food to eat, no one else was ill. I was so sick the next day. I was sick all over the set of EastEnders. I walked in the morning at 7 o'clock, and I knew I was in trouble, because the makeup girl took one look at me and said, "Oh my God." I just would rather Sarah hadn't been seen that day, or any other day, I think, on screen. It's great fun, but I think that's gone.
I was just worried that they were going to ask me to get back into the old costume. I thought, there's no way I get anywhere near it. No, but John said, no, don't worry, no, we don't expect you to get into your old costumes.
And in Snake Dance, of course, you worked with Liz's husband.
Yes,
yes,
that's right.
So, Snake Dance, that was the one with the big snake, wasn't it?
I can't remember. Trying to remember the story. He was. Because that was when I had the McDonald's costume. I think that was the first story of my McDonald's costume.
I thought Snake Dance was very good.
Yes, it was. Snake Dance and Kinder were linked, weren't they? That's right, because Kinder... I wasn't in Kinder, that was Janet's story. I think, going back to the busy TARDIS, I think that was the problem you were talking about, better to be out of the scene than in it. They had so many of us in the TARDIS, and it was splitting the story up in such a ridiculous fashion, having to create a story for someone and some reason for someone going off somewhere else. In order to give one person a really good story, they had to get rid of the other one, and so I was told to have a headache for 3 episodes and go and lie down in a quiet corner somewhere so that Janet could get on with it. And I think that's one of the reasons.
I think that's what happened in 5 Doctors. It was terribly difficult to give everyone a fair crack of the whip, and I think it was sort of pulled together at the last minute, and it was a bit piecemeal, I found.
So, at the end of the day, then, are you happy with your contributions to Doctor Who? Would you want to go back at all now, or?
I'm not sure I'd want to go back, but I do have fond memories. I know a lot of people they tend to want to sort of forget it. I have very good memories of when I did Doctor Who. It was a very happy time for me. I was 19, 20, and I was working at the BBC. I was earning my own money. I was sharing a flat in town, and I met my husband at that time. It was just a great time for me, and I have very fond memories.
Yeah, I think most of the girls would say that. Really, it was a very special time. I had a part that no one else had created. The character is really the same. They say they want you to be different every time they get a new girl, but basically you have to fit the format, because without the format you haven't got a programme. But no, Sarah was mine, and I loved her, and I would never like to see anyone else play her. My daughter has ideas about that, though. I'm getting a bit worried there. No, I was very, very happy. It was a very special time of my life, and thank God for Doctor Who.
Now, just to end on, because we're running out of time here before the auction, unfortunately, I hear, a little bird told me, that Tom Baker called you Miss Basingstoke for some reason.
Yeah, it's another reason why the first 2 stories I did, I wasn't overly happy. Tom decided that I was Miss Basingstoke. I was actually born in Basingstoke. I was born in the Shrubbery. And it's a nursing home called the Shrubbery, so I was born in the Shrubbery in Basingstoke. And he didn't say a lot to me, Tom Baker. He didn't talk to me an awful lot, but whenever he did, it was always Miss Basingstoke. Well, come here, Miss Basingstoke. What are you doing now, Miss Basingstoke? And I did hate that. I hope no one else ever calls me Miss Basingstoke.
And you also have a fan club as well, don't you?
Do I? I do. I do. I have a fan club. Yes.
Many members.
One, isn't it? I don't know. You tell me.
But I think Liz has a fan club.
In America, yes. Kevin Parker, KP, where the nuts come from. He's very nice. He's very patient with me because I never write back to him. I find it very difficult on a fandom level. Mainly what I do, no one would be interested in. Yes, it's very nice. I've just done an episode of a new series, and I'm going to do a radio with my husband next week. So that's fine. But basically, in between times, I do what I do, and it's private. And I think there's an area there he finds difficult to cope with.
I have the same problem, which is why I sort of went slightly vague and blank when you mentioned it. Because someone did I don't know if it still exists. That's why I was a bit taken aback by it. I did have one, and he'd write to me and say, "Could you send me some new photos? What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing anything. It's really boring. I don't know what you're going to write." And it was slightly embarrassing, and so it did sort of just disappeared, I suppose. And I didn't know it was still sort of going. I didn't think it was, but there's not enough about me to write, I don't think.
Well, anyway, unfortunately, we've got to wrap that up now for the auction. But please, thanks a lot for both the ladies coming on stage, and give them a big round of applause.